images of glory in my mind at enlistment. Overhead a flapping red, white, and blue, filling the distance. A grand divide between myself and conscientious convictions or belief systems that stop people from killing over religion. I was young, and I was out of options in my mind. It was supposed to be fun, my obligations ill-defined. I'd either want to take charge with a gun back in my mind. Without college or riches, no dreams to realize. Well, I never have the ladder the Marines to get me to first. Ain't nothing better than dressed blues and one spit in this verse. You see the world paying to the GI Bill, fat in the purse. My recruiter made it sound simple, a play get well rehearsed. Forever cursed to the ones who get young innocent signatures under the guise of a God country their honor diminishes. Greed built a standing army when against the founders' wishes. Now free democracy conducts war games and peacekeeping missions. Ironic hypocrisy.
Fallen tears, raindrops from your eyes. Fallen rain, let it fall.
I scored high on my entrance exams on ASVAB and chose the 0341 with guaranteed Hawaii track. Graduated basic, now MOS school's where I'm at. I'm more than a man with a 35-pound gun on my back. Plus my rifle 8 pounds and 65-pound pack. I'm 18, weigh a $195 and feel jack. 108 pounds on my back, a boot marine and Cadillacs. A short 20-mile hump, 4 quarts in my flat. After 7 miles, swearing in my right foot crack. I'm an E1, tell my sergeant I think it snapped. He's an E5, shouts profit, don't feed me crap. You got 2 feet, compensate and don't fall back. After 4 more miles, my left foot joins in the act. Only 9 more to go, I walked them all, that's a fact. 1 certificate for intestinal fortitude, not having shat. And 3 months healing, lost Hawaii to Guantanamo, rap.
Sergeant Davey 12, who I met in 6th grade. Dress greens, patent leather, and a high top fade. My mind was made up, I couldn't wait to grow up so I could sign up, man up, and stop the corrupt. A champion for God and country. Just wait till they get a load of me, an unstoppable PFC. Private first class, polished brass. I wanted to kill all the black pajamas that were hiding in the grass. But with no war in sight, my plight to fight never took flight. So I trained during the day and got drunk at night. Set my sights on all types of glory. Fast forward to Afghanistan, totally different story. IEDs, enemies, no front line to see. 80 pounds of gear in the desert, I could hardly breathe. Bloodstained fatigues, very many colleagues sent home to the VA to live with PTSD. Everyday recruiters go to inner cities and ask for
fallen tears, raindrops from your eyes. Fallen rain, let it fall.
I never let my children volunteer for the military to make the same mistakes as I did these days could be deadly. If they're drafted with Dodgers, my go back stay ready. I support Manning and Snowden. You know where this country's heading. Global tyrant, hegemonic, bully police force, demonic practice, virgin sacrifice, bloodlust. Oil wars valuing corporations over people. Vampires. This is sick worship by objects and pure evil. Material desires get more attention than spiritual. Benefits are based on profits. Complaints aren't given view. Arms manufacture supply both sides of conflicts. Do you have a problem with any of these statements or doubt their truth? I'm a father and a veteran, and I stand for peace. Julian Assange against our commanders-in-chief. But it's hard to be better when daily demands compete. I'm not ignoring the slaughter, I'm just trying to eat like you.
Fallen tears, raindrops from your eyes. Fallen rain, let it fall.
Peace and blessings, peace and love. Thank you for joining me on this February 3rd, 2021, this Wednesday edition of Stand Down Live with Veterans of Peace. I'm blessed and happy to be here with my co-hosts, Natasha and Mike. And thank you for joining us out there in virtual world, in COVID-19 2021 new reality world. Fun fact: I see Susanna Farrar has shared in England Black History Month is October. It's still much too short. Yes, we agree. Black History Month is way too short. Black Futures Month was started. I don't remember the year, but we looked it up the other day. Like the alignment between Frederick Douglass, it was, and Abraham Lincoln. I think it was both of their birthdays or something like that. And so that was the week connection used to create February as Black History Month. It's not like February, especially in North America, is particularly favored by African descended people, and certainly the shortest month of the year. That doesn't go missed by anybody. I got a couple fun facts for y'all about this day in February 3rd, 1947. Percival Prattis becomes the first Black man correspondent, first Black news correspondent admitted to the House and Senate press galleries in Washington, D.C. And he's really interesting. His biography: this man was born in 1895 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he attended the Hampton Institute from 1912 to 1915 and graduated in 1916 from Ferris Institute. He served as a battalion sergeant major in the U.S. Army during World War I. Headquartered in the company 813 Pioneer Infantry. So he was an infantryman and he was a battle sergeant major in the U.S. Army in the First World War that this country ever fought. That's a trend you'll see throughout the day, I'm pretty sure. He was stationed in France in 1918 and 1919. I think that's during Harlem Renaissance. He began his career in journalism as the editor of the newly founded Michigan State News in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And in 1921, he moved to Chicago to become the city editor of the Chicago Defender, which was the most influential African-American weekly newspaper in the country at the beginning of World War I. He went on to do something really incredible in 1936 after moving to Pittsburgh and becoming the editor of the Pittsburgh Courier in 1947. He continued to grow his career, and that's when he got into the Senate and House press corps. And then in 1960, when that same paper was having some financial troubles, he donates $33,000 of his own dollars in 1960. That's a lot of money. That could have bought you a couple of houses, to stabilize the paper and make it a strong paper and create a legacy. So that's just doing things on his own, doing things himself, being a trendsetter, and really creating a space for other people, a platform. You know, the media and Black media, independent media, is a voice for liberation historically. So there's just a good example of putting your best foot forward and leading on your own. We're going to talk about some current events right now. And I know that what's on my mind for the past few days is the young 9-year-old girl who was brutally accosted, brutally attacked, arrested, violated by the police in Rochester, New York, when what was needed was compassion and love. As my co-host has so aptly said, you know, what she needed was love, and what she got was terror. She was terrorized by police who maced her quickly, rather than having a conversation. This is the same city where the brother was a spit hood was put on Benjamin Prude, was put on him, and he died after having his face pressed into the freezing cold ground. We are 500 plus years into a fight for liberation. and with people who are willing to talk and who seem calm and able to converse, the conversation should be so far past this point, in my humble opinion. And who am I to set time? But we are here having this conversation. It's happening on lots of platforms. Lots of people are having it. So it's clearly a good time to have it. And I'm happy to be here, and I want to look forward. I want this to be a powerful month, a powerful year, Black Futures Month. I like more than Black History Month. And I want to check in with Natasha and Mike and see how my family's feeling. I'll go to Natasha.
Hey, thank you for sharing that nugget. And I think it's so important to happy Black History Month. I guess that's a thing to say. I guess I saw it across social media and I was like, okay, yeah, let's celebrate us and be happy about that. So no matter if you are, that's right. No matter your stripe, I think that this is a moment for everyone to get involved. A lot of communities are hosting Zoom virtual events where before you'd have to travel in this cold weather, depending on where you are. So now you get to do it in the convenience of your slippers. So tune into those events that are happening all month long, because I think what you're going to learn, I think what is out to be learned is how much Black history really is American history, full stop. And so this compartmentalization that we do about, we have to have Black curriculum. No, we need Black experience to be emerged and reflected honestly in the curriculum that is taught to our children. It should not be considered separate or an elective. It's offensive to even see the menu of options like that, because Black Americans have quite honestly built this nation and continues to, thrive, just American culture in so many ways. So I'm excited. I'm celebratory, but like you, I see all of these things that are happening around us. And so while I'm celebratory, I'm also thinking about how much work there is to be done to really have atonement. So what is it to learn about Black history? I think it's also to recognize the Black experience in an honest way. And that, could potentially, grow the country forward. I think there's so many miscommunications and missed opportunities for us to learn and grow. So we can't all lives matter this discussion as yes, we celebrate Black history, but we still maintain the same systems and structures that Black folks experience in this nation, right? Which is inequitable structural racism that is reinforced by capitalism, imperialism, all of the isms. So while I'm celebratory and I'm excited about Black History Month, I'm also man, we have some work to do. We just saw that after the election in Georgia, that the very next day, our nation had the Confederate flag inside the Capitol. That had never happened before. So while I know we want to move on, I also feel I'm excited about what's happening in my community, where folks are actually having these tough conversations, even in Veterans for Peace. We feel hey, when there's an issue, we have to deal with that issue, right? And there's so much historical context just because we don't communicate the same way that we have to kind of address in order to improve our culture. So no matter what group you are, if you're a veteran, if you're a veteran family member, or just here because you support VFP, I think it's important to use this month to be intentional and dig deeper at things, right? So what are we going to talk about today? Mike, what's on your mind?
Well, thanks for that introduction. We've covered a lot of threads in the first 15 minutes. There's a lot going on, a lot to talk about. We're here for our audience, and we're happy to see the comments and conversation that goes on. We're happy to talk about whatever our audience wants to talk about. But yeah, it's interesting that you brought up in the beginning, Miles, the case of a Black history, an example of Black history where a military veteran he recognized the threat of fascism and censorship in news and media, and he came back and he used his military experience and his experience dealing with the military, and he decided to make his life calling an effort to preserve freedom of speech. And it's just a perfect example of how we owe so much to Black History Month, or to Black people, American Black people, and that in particular, as veterans, we owe a lot to different Black veterans who came back and offered a lot to our culture and our society to preserve freedom and challenge the establishment. So I think it'd be nice to talk about a few of these other specific examples. And then, so we've covered so many different things. The other thing we talked about was in Rochester, New York, was the example of the young girl that was attacked by police officers. That was such an obvious example that these cops, like, nothing's really changed, even with the uprisings that happened over the last summer. A lot of these cops, they feel entitled, they feel safe from prosecution, that they can go around abusing people, even 9-year-old children, locking them up in the back of a car and essentially torturing them with a chemical weapon that is illegal under Geneva Conventions. They can just torture people at will and get away with it. I see a news article here that says that one police officer was suspended and 2 were placed on administrative leave in Rochester after hundreds of people took to the streets chanting Black Lives Matter and so on, challenge the police. So, that's all they get, is 1 is suspended and 2 on administrative leave. So absolutely a slap on the wrist, ridiculous. These things, they go unpunished. There's no repercussions, and things will go on. They'll continue to feel privileged to be able to do that. It's horrible. So we need to challenge that.
Can I jump in for a minute? I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I know you want to talk about. I don't know if you want to jump into Geronimo Pratt right now, but
no, keep it going. Yeah,
the insurrection, the failed insurrection, right, is an example. Sarah, I'm forgetting her last name right now, but my sister out in Kansas City, VFP member, says, a failed insurrection, the not checking that turns it into a training exercise.
That's right.
And so as these people who defiled the flag and the Constitution, which I don't really care about either of them that much, F at all, except that they give us the right to do this, the freedom to do this, which is powerful, but they were built on such toxic lies, such toxicity, that the very thing that those people are claiming to defend, they defiled by taking the Confederate flag into the Capitol, by trying to overthrow the country, and then by not prosecuting those people. And I'm not a person who supports prisons, right? This is crazy, because I'm a prison abolitionist, but by not financially penalizing them or giving them time behind bars, everyone else is like, you know what? Maybe if we do this a little bit harder in 6 months with a little more planning, we can win. That's the message being sent. And even the legal team for Trump right now, sending these dog whistle calls about 75 million voters or more who voted for Trump. It's like this whole, why is this person and why are these people still relevant? It's because of what Natasha said, that we have to unpack it. It has to be unwrapped. It can't just be swept over and moved on. The conversation has to be had. The difficult conversations have to be had. And these people have to come to terms with the wrong that they've done, and vocalize their remorse for it and willingness to change. And it has to be done on a public scale. And that's not about shaming a person. That's about a person owning their flaws, owning their shortcomings, right? And then building for better. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I saw parts of, to your point, Congresswoman AOC out of New York did a recent Instagram Live where she talks about not feeling comfortable talking about what actually happened on that day. Originally for security purposes, right? They didn't want to give up means and ways or the vulnerability that exists. So there was a hesitation to speak out, but then also feeling compelled to speak out because in the Congress and Senate, there is a push to move on. And so and if you haven't seen it, there's clips of it out there. It's powerful. She talks about the PTS and the trauma that they experienced while feeling like they had targets and not being able to trust their colleagues with not giving up their position. So they didn't, like all of what she explained to me. And then she goes in to talk about, to then know that a great number of these folks were military, ex-military, police, and potentially with allies inside of the Capitol. She talked about how terrifying just that adds to that she does not think that this is a threat that is behind us, right? And because of their training, again, right, she's talking about coming to the reality of just let that sit a bit, like that the military and some, veterans and people who we, have trust or we're told to trust, right? They're the good guys, were suddenly using that training on the US Capitol and electeds. She talks about the fear of what they're planning next, right? So not to gaslight the situation, she goes in to talk about how we cannot move on. We have to have these deep conversations. There has to be accountability for all of those who participated in it. And so that's where we have to be if we're hoping to really grow from this situation, no matter what political land you stand on, right? Like, this is not about the former president, the current president. This is about the protection of our nation at this point. And where are we as Americans to play a part in that? All of us know somebody that is on the fringe. And we, this should feel like an opportunity for silence to not be what guides us. Silence is not going to save this. If you are not racist, you have to be actively anti-racist, period. It's a verb. Seriously, I think that's where we need to be, is that we need to have conversations with our family members, our neighbors, and our friends to heal and not wait for someone else to kind of take that ownership. As veterans, we know what that is like. Whether it is, a peer group, I think that's critically important because most of us have been through things, combat stress, and we have skills that, could be useful in this moment, right? So
yeah, I think so. I think focusing in on the Capitol fascist riot that we had, it is really scary because it does seem that they do have institutional capacity that isn't going away, and there's a certain class element to it, that a lot of the people that led this riot or were major players, or a lot of the people that were arrested, a lot of them were cops, they were federal agents of some sort or some affiliation, they were military veterans, high-ranking officers. So that is certainly very scary. And I was thinking about how to think about that, how to frame it, and I was thinking of this quote that George Jackson made, and I brought it up real quick, where George Jackson, who was a famous revolutionary who was imprisoned, he became a Black Panther while he was in prison, and he was a prolific writer. He's a great person to really understand in like simple terms what fascism is and its relationship in the United States. But in this quote, the short quote, he says, "The history of this country, the very nature of all its fundamental elements, and its economic, social, political, and military mobilization distinguish it as the prototype of the international fascist counter-revolution." So I think what he's saying, America is unique. You can say, you can complain all this country is screwed up and think, well, all countries are screwed up. Well, not really. I mean, America is exceptional in the fact that it's exceptionally screwed up, and it is the heart of the modern fascist movement. And I think that's what we saw in that Capitol riot. And it is scary, and we do have to hold those people accountable. I don't have a whole lot of hope for that, but we do what we can on the streets, in our own organizing, in our own preparation and study and education. So
I jump in. I'll say I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of hope for these people because they're passionate. They're misinformed. Editorial Sarah Campbell. Sarah Campbell is the sister who said a failed insurrection unchecked becomes a training op. I'm not quoting you. I know that's not exactly what you said, but it's to that effect. And it's really now is the time. So these people who have been misled and who are uninformed, they span some generations. They are not just products of No Child Left Behind miseducation programs. They're the culmination of 40, 50, 60 years of an education system built for a factory economy that has been shifting away from a factory economy. They're the product of overextended credit cards, fearful that they're going to lose their position in life. They're the product of small business closures and businesses moving overseas and seeing the changing demographic of their country, and fear is involved. And so they are the product of generations of politics that have been quiet on these topics and sending dog whistle calls about race and race baiting to their electorates. So as long as these people are guided and educated, they can be shifted to see. I believe they can be shifted to see the power of love, because they are misled right now, believing that what they are espousing is love. They espouse love, but it's just misguided, and they don't realize it. And I do have hope.
Yeah, that's possible. We certainly need to try and reach out to these people and try and build understanding and coalition. I mean, we also need to understand that there will be a day when there will be a line drawn in the sand, and we'll have to fight these people by any means necessary as well.
These are our country mates. These are our neighborhood. They live in our neighborhoods. They go to our school. We grew up with them. They go to school. We literally work side by side with these people. They are, and we are, to them, we're the enemy, right? But we're each other's dental techs. We're giving each other nasal swabs to check for COVID-19. We are literally, there are Trump supporters who put produce on shelves for Black people to take off of shelves. You understand what I'm saying? And you don't know what your food you're interacting with, who's going to buy it, right? We're divided on these lines that we think are so real, and we hold on to so much, but there's so much more in life. We interact with each other on such deep levels every day. And these things that we fight over are so superficial and meaningless, and we put a lot of weight on them. We interact with each other in ways that are very sacred to us as well. Like our food, that's what I'm talking about, y'all. Like there are all sorts of people working in our grocery stores and in our checkout lines, and we're around each other all the time, and we're bickering like just like toddlers over toys. It's sad, and I'll go back to what I said a few weeks ago. These people and us need to be See, we are them. I believe the pushback is because of fear that we are going to fundamentally change their world. And the truth is that we're going to change it for the better. And just look at the long span of where we've been and what we're living in now. Look at what we're living in now. You know, it's powerful, y'all. This is powerful. This is powerful. And these conversations have to be had, and people have to cry, and people have to realize that, you know, my neighbors who live across the street fly a Trump flag, and my children play with their dog. You understand me? And we talk to each other, and we're very cordial. And so, like, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. And to kill your fellow countrymen is not to make your country a better place. And it's not going to make you more safe. And that's the end of my diatribe. I apologize for going so long.
No, I understand. I get what you're saying. This is our life. This is the modern world we're living in, and it's a very complicated and nuanced thing that we have to navigate. But we know the right side of history here at VFP, and we know where we're going and what we're doing and who we want to build coalition with. So that's what's important. We know that we want to celebrate Black History Month. I'm sure those people, the fascists and the Trump supporters, aren't too keen on Black History Month. So yeah, I mean, we definitely, let's stay focused on that and building our education and our base. I don't know. What do you think, Natasha?
She's just quiet. What's up?
No, I was reflecting on what you were saying, and like I appreciate your thoughts. And you know, just what I'll add to that is while hope is a great thing to hold on to, there's this reality or this tension that comes up for me because I talk about this often. Don't want to sound like a broken record, but I also watched and listen to these folks, you know, plan for this thing years ago. Years ago, I didn't know what it was. I think I shared that too, while sitting, you know, in on active duty, sitting in the office, listening to the guys in my office be radicalized by what was like the Alex Jones, I think, or some personality that they would listen to on YouTube in the office on the government equipment, that, you know, just, and you watch them develop down these websites that we now consider far right extremists, like alternative facts. And they bought into that years ago, 10 years ago. So yes, hopeful, yes. Up to a point, we have to organize our communities to be strong, is where I think we really need to spend our energy, because this isn't a matter of just having a one-way approach to this thing. We also need to have strong communities. We also need, depending on how you feel, you know, be, you know, safely exercise our right to bear arms, to be able to protect our families. You know, and a lot of people that I know have bug out backpacks, you know, with survival needs for weeks, ready to go. So I think in the span of all of that, I think hope is what we want to hold on to, but I don't want it to stop us from also organizing and moving forward, right? So that we can, you know, just be prepared for whatever. Yeah,
and history repeats itself too. You know, we got to think about this. this has been going on, for 100 years, these patterns of these like fascist insurrections. And then, I remember I took a design history class in college, and it's kind of an art history class. And I remember seeing all these brilliant uprisings of culture and design and art. And every single time they always seem to get smashed down. And that really affected me, thinking about these patterns that happen over and over again throughout history. And we can look at the rise of the Nazis and Hitler, where it was very similar to what's going on with Trump and QAnon and all these wild conspiracy theories, where these people just get buried in piles of bullshit, right? And they get so confused. Actually, in some respects, oftentimes they have a good analysis of how they're getting screwed, right? They understand that the system is failing them, but then they're so buried in white supremacy, in nationalism and chauvinism, that they just get, they get to the point where they just break out, and it turns into a total freak show. And it's essentially the same thing that happened with the Nazis. And you can even say that that's kind of similar what happened with the French Revolution, which was essentially a capitalist revolution. There was these wild conspiracy theories flying around everywhere. But here we are. And it makes me think of, Vietnam. It makes me think of, it makes me think again, bringing it back to Black liberation and great thinkers. It makes me think of George Jackson writing about Vietnam, where he said, "This Vietnam adventure on the part of the fascist has vastly changed the whole relationship between the masses and the ruling class. Can you detect the subtle changes? The really ugly side of imperialism is being demonstrated for not just the people who suffer its effects abroad, but also to the sleepy little guy here inside the US. They're starting now to make the link between the foreign wars and foreign businesses." So that's kind of still what's going on here. The country's breaking down. We're spending the vast majority of we're spending a huge amount of our GDP on outrageous military spending, on nuclear war, as if anybody needed nuclear war, as if anybody needed a single nuclear bomb. And it's causing the breakdown of society and our fabric. And George Jackson was writing that in Vietnam, and it seemed like he probably had a notion that people would start to come around and start to understand these inherent contradictions, and things would begin to change. And yet here we are in 2021, and it's the same thing happening over and over and over again. So that's why it's so important that we study, get a grip on this stuff.
I think lots of people know yes, I agree. It's important that we study, and that's the reason why. I think lots of people know the what, like you said. People know that things are going wrong. People know that things are not right, but they don't know the how. A lot of people don't know the how, and even fewer people know the why. So they might know the what of the problem, or, most people identify with the who, honestly, right? Most people are stuck on who. Small minds talk about people, average minds talk about events, and great minds talk about ideas. So if you can hear that and take that in and not be offended by it, and if you're a person who always talks about people, just think about it. You know what I'm saying? You're totally on a superficial, right? Small minds are always gossiping and back and forth about this or that person. Average people, which is most people, talk about events, sporting events, political events, changes in leaders, this, that, and the third. And then very few people like Geronimo Pratt, who you're just mentioning, who you just told us about, talk about ideas and share ideas and build ideas and grow movements, and so if you think about, most people are thinking about who. They're thinking about this, that, personal stuff, the world. Some people are thinking about what's happening. Very few people are thinking about how or why it's happening, how or why anything is happening. And so if you're not asking questions of why or how, you can't begin to understand what the future is going to look like. Then, like you said, things come back around. So the next cycle, when things come back around for the next generation, for you on your next rung of life, what's it gonna look like? I'm gonna do a song, y'all. I'm gonna jump into Take It All Back. Take It All Back is a song about Black liberation. And it talks about the who, the what, the why, the when, the where, and it talks about the how we can move forward. And then we'll jump back into some conversation, and maybe I'll even share Area 51 at the end if we get there. So I've got it queued up. I know I got to share screen, so y'all know what I'm doing. And then I'll grab an application window. I'll go back, because I didn't share my audio. You wouldn't have heard anything. Share my audio, grab an application window, and then see what this sounds like for y'all. And cool. Can you give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear some music? Let me know something, because I have no way of doing a sound check. I have no faces to look at. So I got to get some sort of thumbs up or something in the chat from people about the sound of my voice and the sound of the music together before I start rapping. And y'all can't hear either, because that would suck. This is produced by Fred Quick on my 2006 album, The Graduate Program. It's got the vocals under it, but I will also be rapping. Can you hear me? Can you hear what's going on? We're going to take it all back. Nothing yet. So y'all hear vocals? You hear music? More. I hear your voice. You don't hear my music? Mike Marion, you hear music? Got it. Cool. Word. All right. All right. Here we go, y'all. More slaves died on the ships than on the shores. Plantations, triangle trades, and tribal wars. The Holocaust occurred before the First World War, and it's still taking place today in a different form, because we think it's the norm. Eviction notices and layoffs, federal agents, corporate scams and payoffs, outrageous taxes, and not enough days off to justify insufficient benefits to cover a cough. Listen, my water gets shut off. What can I do if my electricity's out and my phone is down too? Expand from micro to macro, encompass a worldview. Perceive problems overseas can pose a threat to you. In a breath, you can do what nations can't even achieve. We inhale, find peace, become rooted and believe. This is one love. There's only one way to leave. Exhale, release the seeds, allow love to leave. Because we're going to take it all back. Make it break their back. Shut down the system. Wipe clean the track. Let's take it all back. Make it break their back. Shut down the system. Wipe clean the track. Let's take it all back. Make it break their back. Shut down the system. Wipe clean the track. We're going to take it all back. Make it break their back. Shut down the system. Wipe clean the track. Foreign lands, foreign shores. White sand beaches of war, covered in blood, while the USO does covering tours. This offering's pure. This world is diluted manure. Give me a sure and I write the ills. Cleansing tour, that's goodness. Strike daylight, cortisone, or the belly of the beast. That freedom calls home. On my land, where free tribes used to roam. Now we hunted like buffalo, lost tribes in the zone. Investing in 20-inch chromes for protection, while 8 remains a section awaiting the resurrection. Getting fly, staying high on a constant mission for section. Forgetting the reflections of cubes of lethal injections. Becoming prey to predators, praying for inoculations from the ramifications of their poor decision making. Like tasting fly 8's vagina of an undecided major. I come to spray truth from the Swatch to Decatur. We gonna take it all back, make it break they back. Shut down the system, wipe clean the track. I know this scares the GOP. I know this scares the libertarians. We gonna take it all back, make it break they back. Shut down the system, wipe clean the track. Jeff Bezos, don't be too scared, baby. It's okay. It's okay. What's the drop? This is a 2,000-year-old plot. Throughout the ages, don't stop the rock. Vibrate the stages. Don't stop the rock. Don't stop the rock. Don't stop the rock. Now screaming till your lungs pop, then ask for more of that high-strung horse, snorting lines off the floor, licking fingers clean in between lips and the jaw. Content with low rent and not looking for more. Bombard the shores, load up the 18-wheelers, hold up freight trains till conductors feel us. Give me the loot, ante up. It's green lust. I need the cash, investment, stocks and trust, or just hate.
And inequality, condescending attitudes with common realities. America the ugly with its beautiful casualties. We having a black tie fair, so come casual, please. We gonna take it all back. Shut down the system. Let's take it all back. Shut down these prisons. Wipe clean the track. Let's take it all back. Defund the police. Wipe clean the track. Let's take it all back. Impeach number 45. Wipe clean the track. Let's take it all back. Hold number 46 accountable. Let's take it all back. Make it break their back. Shut down the system. Wipe clean the track. Put money into the right areas, y'all. That's all we want to do. That's all we want to do is put it into the right areas. We don't want to shut down. We don't want to stop life as we know it and go back to horse and wagon, horse and buggy. That's not what anybody's talking about. We got the technology to live in a peaceful world built around peace and education, love and compassion. You know, that's what we're talking about. We want to shut down these prisons, shut down these military industrial complexes that are keeping the people bankrupt. That's what we want to shut down. So that is my that's from my 2006 joint, Take It All Back, the graduate program, because before I knew it, I guess when I was starting, I guess my music has always been political. You know, speaking out is a political choice, right? Using your voice is a political choice. So Amanda Gorman said that recently on a TEDx talk. Powerful young sister. That is Black present. That is the Black gift. That is the gift of Black presence in this world. You know what I'm saying? The presence of Black life, melanated life, is creativity, is constant innovation, is just compassion and love. What people on this planet can deal with hundreds of years of oppression, hundreds of years of dehumanization, degradation, and still take care of your children, and still take care of your community, and still fight for the freedom and liberation of all people? That is African people, you know. And I love our pale skinned brothers and sisters fighting alongside us, and the blood flowing through my veins, you know what I'm saying, as well, because I recognize that I am mixed race, and in this country I am seen as a Black man, as light as I am. So that's how I identify. And in this vein of full disclosure, I am mostly Native American. I'm mostly Iroquois Nation. I'm mostly Blackfoot Nation. That's the predominant blood in my veins. But I don't have tribal affiliation, and I've always seen myself and been seen as a Black man. So that's what I see myself as. So welcome to America. This is America, you know.
Thank you, Miles, for sharing your talent and also sharing your thoughts. This is a good conversation. It's a good way to kick off. You know, and I think it's also great that we, you know, sometimes we can just kind of chop it up and have these type of shows where we can just have the space to kind of talk. We have a great lineup for the next few weeks. So I'm excited about our guests that are going to be on the show. But I, you know, just listening to you speak, it's also important. I think about, like, you know, what's happening in our cities immediately, like right now. So here we are. We don't say this enough. We are still in the throes of COVID-19, a global health pandemic that is having devastating effect. I don't even watch the news, so I'll be honest, I don't know the total number of lives that we've lost in around about the past year, little less. But I think it's interesting to watch things like here in my city where there's a huge fight around, you know, returning and reopening schools for like the K-8 young people, right? And so, you know, no matter those who, most overwhelmingly, our district is Black and Latinx and Hispanic folk. Just about 10% of the district is or identify as white. Those are the overwhelming majority of folks that want to return into schools. And so the decisioning is being made, not just based on race, but also affluence and class. Quite honestly, we are a great city divided along the class line, right? And so the decision to reopen schools, what we're seeing is right now there's negotiation, and we're like waiting and texting to find out when the CTU and CPS, Chicago Public Schools and the Chicago Teachers Union, can come to an agreement around whether to reopen schools, because teachers do not feel that the schools are ready. Principals have now released a strongly worded statement saying that they don't believe that the schools are ready. So I think that that's something that's not just here in Chicago. We're seeing it reflected across the map, right? Like New York is also dealing with this, issue. So that's kind of came up to me about like when I think about COVID-19 and how it's having an impact on people's lives. That's just something that's happening here at home. But you talked about investing in the right place. We spend all of this money on foreign, like the national defense, budget was really approved and kind of sailed through with a little bit of, drama that was happening or whatever. But overwhelmingly it was approved and passed. And it's like, we didn't, consider even thinking about why we needed to prioritize that money right now amid COVID-19, right? So if not now, when are we going to consider transferring resources from the Pentagon? Like you see scrolling there, people over Pentagon. I think that we are in a moment where we have to really start asking our electeds, which side are you on, right? And it should be on the side of the people. We, waste a lot of money in the Pentagon. We truly don't really know how much is spent because the Pentagon has not been audited, right? But the smoke that we see coming out where there's clearly a fire is that there's a huge waste of funds. And we see those resources that are wasted on artillery and vehicles and things end up in the local police departments, right? So here, not just what we see, our schools are divested, that we don't have the same schools on the north side of our city do not have the same things that the south and the west side of our city have. So while there are some schools that are going to be able to buy the glass barriers and are going to be able to have the air filtration and all of these things in order to educate their children safely, that is not the reality here on the south side and over west, right? So it's wicked. So when I'm talking about like where are our priorities as a nation, like even amid a global health pandemic, we are having this discussion. It's wild. Like I'm just baffled when I think about it in that context. That we really have to. That's a verb too. Like no matter what also happens, and I'm going to end with this, is that when we're talking about the national defense budget, somehow the conversation is reduced to support the troops. Can we please be very clear that that is not what this is? And the troops are used, trust me, it doesn't get down. The troops don't feel those pay raises. Sometimes not even $100 is seen in your actual paycheck. Like those billions of dollars are going to corporations that survive, quite honestly, off the military industrial complex. And they are lobbying our political officials to keep them well financed. So if we don't start getting at that and having political education in our communities, and I think it's good when we have veteran and non-veteran spaces where we can share some of that information that we know with our communities to like bring that up. So if we're talking about like, what do we need in this moment? We really need to start talking about defunding the Pentagon.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, there's so many great threads to go down there, and I know there's a lot going on in Chicago right now. I was just listening to the By Any Means Necessary podcast out of Washington, D.C., which I highly recommend If anybody is into podcasts, that's one to check out. But they did a segment the other day talking specifically about the teacher strike and some of the successes that they were having. And well, yeah, I mean, it's very complicated. They're having some losses. These teachers are out there. They're on laptops outside of their schools doing classes, using the Wi-Fi in the snow, trying to keep up and teach their kids, and these teachers are having a hell of a time fighting the state. I know the mayor Lori Lightfoot is trying to reopen all the bars, all the entertainment places and the schools, and just try to act like everything is back to normal, if business resumes and everything's back to normal. But we have 500,000 deaths from COVID, which I'm sure is underreported, because really, who's out there in every state counting and accounting for who's dying from COVID and who's not? So I'm sure the number is much higher than that. 27 million cases. And yeah, so our country is thoroughly hollowed out at this point. It's our entire public education system is, we basically kiss it goodbye at this point, unless there's some kind of massive revolutionary struggle to reinvigorate it. And so sitting by and watching it deteriorate is really painful. I know it's affecting a lot of people deeply. I mean, could you tell us any more about what you know about what's going on in Chicago, and with specific examples of the schools?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a couple of examples to spell out a little bit, because it's not just about those, barriers, right? It's really about, we had decades of disinvestment. We have decades of neglect and harm and inequities that have been ignored for so long that now we have a crisis, which there's no more masking the problems. So now we're in a fight where there are some folks that honestly believe, and they have a reality for reopening schools according to CDC guidelines. Like, it makes sense in those new buildings with 800,000 on the high end endowment, because that's what their local fundraisers bring in each year, right? So this isn't even a limitation of the school budget. It's their access to resources outside and crowdsourcing that we don't see across the other sides of the city. And so the divide on whether we return, yes, we need our children in school so that they can get those wraparound services that so many poor children need. Like, no one understands that more than, I think, poor families, specifically Black and Latinx and other marginalized group of folks. But how do we do that when we see no real movement towards righting the inequities that we have? We still have children that don't have adequate technology. What we don't talk about is how many of our children have been left behind in this moment, right? Because they don't have that access. So the disparities, quite honestly, we're at the levees have broken phase, and we're still trying to figure out, when do we send relief, right? Like, just that is the type of,
Are we all frozen, or is it just Miss Natasha?
I think Natasha froze. For people who don't know historically, to say that our schools, speaking of predominantly people of color communities, like Black and Latinx communities, marginalized communities, poor white communities, schools in this country are funded by property taxes. So if you don't know that public schools in this country get their money from local property taxes, then like $12,000 budgets per student are ideal, but that's not realistic if there's no homeowners in your community. Your school will be underfunded. And if you just do a little bit of history, just do a little bit of researching white flight, look at desegregation, Look at look at what happened after 1965. Look what happened after schools were desegregated and children were and busing began happening. Just look at the funding that happens in this country. Look at the education drop. Look how education was created in this country for a factory model, for a factory economy, and that shifted dramatically to a service economy. And look at where education is now, still built around a factory model. Unless you're in an upper class or affluent school, you're not going to have access to notebooks and adequate technology to train you for a service economy or to train you to be an entrepreneur. So it's not just people saying the same things and throwing smoke signals and gaslighting y'all. It's actually, there's structural problems all throughout our country that keep poor people at disadvantages. And keep the disenfranchisement going on. And policing tends to be done by people from outside your community. So if you're being policed, if your community is being policed by people who grew up in the suburbs, and you live in an urban city center, then and the people policing you didn't grow up around you, they're going to be scared. And they're going to be quick to pull a trigger and quick to judge the people that they're supposedly protecting. And the students and the schools and the police will be in the schools prejudging the children that they're supposed to be protecting.
Yeah, that's a great point. We see a lot on the right that they call like the uprisings. They say that outside agitators are coming in and starting the uprisings, but in fact it's the other way around. Most of the time it's cops coming in from out of town, from the countryside, and stirring up trouble and literally starting the riots.
Yeah. And
that's something that's reflected on all different kinds of levels of society, from the schools to, all kinds of our institutions and our own uprisings. So
I know Miss Natasha is up in Chicago, and everybody who's in the Midwest, everybody who's joined us today, wherever you are, whatever weather you're experiencing and wherever you're going through in your city, we hope you're safe. I hope Miss Natasha is okay. We'll reach out to her and contact her. But I know I don't know if they had feet of snow, but I know they had a big winter storm come through, near blizzard-like conditions. And I know it happened in a lot of cities. So I hope everybody's safe. And as always, we thank y'all for tuning in with us on this Wednesday, February 3rd, the first Wednesday of Black Futures Month 2021. Black Present Month, Black Gift, the month of the gift. I really don't like Black History Month. I never have. I don't like the idea of it. Because no people need a month. You know what I'm saying? I think it was it Morgan Freeman who said, "Where's White History Month?" You know what I'm saying? Where's Jewish history? Like, I think there might be in America, there is a Jewish History Month, because America's like that. We like to other everybody by giving them a time to celebrate. If they're not, what is it? White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, right? They get othered. So yeah. It's interesting living in this country, growing up here, seeing the changes that have come, and now raising children, and really not wanting to ever have them experience it. I that's my thing. It's like, how is my child not going to experience racism? Or how is my child not going to experience, what I'm saying, maybe overt and hateful prejudice and racism? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the worst part. That's why I do it. So yeah, agreed, Miles. However, we need to educate the youth. Yeah, most definitely. We got to educate them. That's why we're here doing this. We thank you for being in the comments. We thank you for being in the chat room with us today, everybody. And for tuning in. Miss Natasha is still not back. I think we should wrap up, brother. What do you think? How do you feel?
That sounds fine. We covered a lot of ground. We'll regroup and get ready for next week.
Yeah. We love y'all. Everything we had on the agenda, we covered. We love y'all. Y'all be safe. Yeah.
Peace.
Should I take it out? Let me take him out with a song, Mike. Let me take him out with a song, and then let's end it after the song.
All right, go wild.
I'll do a short joint for y'all. Check, check, check. Oh, that's crazy. I need to do the other view, don't I? What happens if I do this? Okay. Oh, y'all get to see my whole screen, all the little comments and everything. Yeah, yeah. Check, check. Well, well. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. This day is like the last, you know it is gonna be. Humble man, run fast, get punished in front of me. I can't breathe or choked up, smoking this potently. Openly, you choking me, hoping I can't breathe. Eric Garner on the corner. Out of order. I think we gonna end it, y'all. I can't take it no more. Yeah. Slap house. Straw house. I love y'all. Check this song out on Code Switching. Peace and plenty, peace and power, peace and empowerment. I love y'all. Happy Black History Month. Stay powerful. I did forget my lyrics. I'm not going to take up the airspace with getting them right. Peace and plenty, peace and power. I have the right to mess up and own it. Peace. I love you.